Let's go. Okay, good morning, Payson. Good morning to everybody on YouTube. Hopefully we're up. Dave, are we up? We're good? And good morning to everybody here today. So we'll go ahead and get started on this. Meeting today is Monday, August 17th, 2020. It's a little after 10 o'clock, but we'll get this kicked off. Terry, you'll lead us in the pledge, and then Debbie, you'll say the invocation.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we come before Thee this morning at the opening of this Board of Supervisors meeting and pray that Thy guidance and direction will be with us. We are grateful for the opportunities we have of living in this land of America and for the freedoms that we enjoy, and pray that we will be healed from those things that are affecting the United States of America at this time. Father, we are grateful for this opportunity and pray that this board meeting will go smoothly and that the things that are presented to the supervisors have been taken in great consideration and that the right things will be done. Help us stand for liberty and justice for one another and share our love for one another. And these things we say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Debbie. Okay, moving on, presentations 2A. Presentation of information on the University of Arizona's Cooperative Extension Range Monitoring Program. Ashley Hall. Good morning, Ashley.
Is it okay? You guys probably can hear me better if I take this.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I'm Ashley Hall. I am the Area Assistant Agent covering range and livestock for Cooperative Extension. I think I'm one of the only agents in our office that has a split appointment, so part of my time is also given to Pinal County, so 80 to 20. My areas of focus are natural resources, takes up 50% of my time, animal science is about 45%, and then youth development is 5%. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk to you about, some of the things I have going on in those program areas today. But first, just a little bit about me. I moved here several years ago from Arkansas to get my master's and my bachelor's at U of A in rangeland ecology, and I met my husband in college, and I loved Arizona so much that I just stuck around. After I finished my master's, I worked for Cooperative Extension in Yuma as a research specialist. I also taught at that same time as adjunct faculty at the local community college. Then I worked for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as a state invasive species coordinator for all of the refuges. And then I came to my current position. So just to start out, I think it was mentioned in the title, one of my biggest things is our cooperative rangeland monitoring program. So throughout the state, there's 2 others that have a cooperative monitoring program in conjunction with the Bureau of Land Management or the Forest Service. So in my case here, it's the Forest Service. And what we do is we help in collecting long-term vegetation trend data that basically helps quantify grazing on public lands. And so usually this data is used to dispute lawsuits that come up during the NEPA process. So these days, there's a lot of folks that don't really like cattle grazing on public land. They think it's a detriment to the land. And so we're able to provide information that says otherwise. I also help the Forest Service in answering questions that come back during the public comment. So right now, actually, I'm working with the Forest Service. There's an allotment in Young that's under litigation. I've been helping them work through some questions that have come back. And Extension, basically what we do is we're an unbiased third party. So we don't give the Forest Service or ranchers any management guides or suggestions. We're basically just there to provide that information. And one of the nice things about Extension is sometimes between ranchers and federal agencies, there can be, some headbutting. And then also those the people that often tend to sue, we can basically say we're a science-based institution, so the data we're collecting isn't biased in any way. We're not biasing it towards the Forest Service. We're not biasing it towards the rancher. And so that kind of makes the data even more defendable when litigation does occur. And so we actually recently did a survey, and we asked 84 ranchers in the survey, and they said that they thought extension staff or agents like myself were the most unbiased person that could be out there helping them collect data. And so our rangeland monitoring program here is called Reading the Range. I'm not going to go into the details of how the program got started. Woody knows all the details, so if you want the big backstory, please ask Woody. But because I'm limited on time today, I just don't have the time to get into all the details. But basically, like I said, I go out with ranchers and the Forest Service, and we collect data. So all of these points right here are areas where we're currently collecting that long-term vegetation data. So 74 ranches on the Tonto are participating. Since I started in 2016, I've added 26 new ranches to that. And then there's only approximately 6 active allotments left to establish those sites. So that's kind of why you see some of these gaps right here. Some of these, like in this area though, they aren't active allotments. So, and I don't think the Forest Service ever plans on opening them. Of course, if they do, we will go there and monitor. And so I get funding, which I'm very grateful for, from the Tonto NRCD and the National Forest. They give me money, and that basically allows me to help hire folks to assist me with monitoring in the fall. It's a lot to take on. I monitor basically from September to probably April every year, on top of all of my other faculty duties. So I'm very grateful to be able to hire additional hands to help me make the work get done a lot faster. Some of the other program highlights, Extension, of course, is all about educational outreach. Locally, I always try to have at least 2 workshops a year, so between Globe and Payson, and those workshops are just based on what the feedback I get from permittees or ranchers or what they want to hear about that might help them with their operation. I also participate in statewide things with other colleagues. Excuse me, and I've used, U of A has a research ranch called VBARB, and I've used that quite a bit for hands-on demonstrations. So right here, we're teaching ranchers how they can trick test a bull themselves. This one, it was a palpation clinic, so they're learning how to, or an artificial insemination as well, so they can learn how to tell if their cattle are pregnant, or if they want to do artificial insemination themselves. That was a training for that. I also am part of a development team. There's a program that we use to collect this range monitoring data called VGS. Ever since I've started working with Extension, I've become really close with the developer, and so I help him provide a lot of national trainings. So this was a training I went to help in Colorado in the San Juan National Forest. We do trainings with Navajo Nation. So basically, I help him with trainings. I beta test new features of the program, and then write a lot of manuals and protocols for like Navajo Nation. They're interested in starting their own monitoring program, so I'm helping them write a protocol so that they can follow along, and it'll be easy for them to get their program started. Being faculty, I do have to have several research projects. So right now, I'm working with colleagues on a statewide forage nutrition project. We're looking at how to synthesize all of this long-term vegetation data we have. So Dr. Sprinkle started this program 10 years ago, so some of the allotments have quite a bit of data. And so we're trying to see if we can kind of tease out drought impacts on vegetation, how long it takes vegetation to recover post-drought, that kind of thing. I also have to do publications, so the research that I do, I end up writing bulletins about. It gets published through journals or cooperative extension. I'm part of the alert program, so if a rancher has dead cattle that they can't figure out what's going on, I get the call. 2 weeks ago, I had to go to Alpine. Tomorrow, I'm going to Sells because Tohono O'odham, they have 100 cattle that are dying. They don't know why. So I travel all over to try and help diagnose the problem. Typically, it's a toxic plant issue, but the one in Alpine was interesting because it ended up being a bronchial infection. I also do service, so Society for Range Management, our local ag extension. Those last 3 are just our local ag extensions. Oh, and then one other thing that made me very happy from that same survey is we asked ranchers where they get their information to help improve their operation, and I was very surprised to find that Extension was second only to other ranchers. So that made me feel really good that ranchers are using the information that we're providing them. As far as youth development, I have two big things that I work on. I'm the director or co-director of Natural Resource Conservation Workshop for Arizona Youth. We just call it NARCWay. It's a week-long camp at our James 4-H facility that's owned by the university. And so it's more natural resource based. So it's for 8th to 12th graders. So the goal is that they come in 8th grade and then they come back every summer. So we rotate our topics every year so that for those repeat kids, it's not the same spiel every year. So we look at watershed, range, forestry, wildlife, and then we have like a basic ologies that we call it, where we just kind of give them a broad overview of the basic sciences. And we try to also bring in folks from different state and federal agencies or nonprofits. That way, if there are kids that once they're getting towards graduating high school, if they're interested in some kind of natural resource career, they're able to talk to those professionals in a career they might want to go into and network and make those connections so that if they really are interested, it kind of gives them that foot in the door with whatever federal agency or career path they're kind of looking into. And the funding for that comes through our Arizona Society for Range Management. Some of the NRCDs are also really great about sponsoring us, and then we get some donations from private individuals. And so this picture at the top is from NARCWay, where we're teaching them about telemetry and how you can track animals through telemetry. The next thing that I'm involved in, I think probably Renee and Ashley Dixon talked about this, is the NRCD Ag Days. So my part is I talk to kids about range management, what range management is. It's really crazy to me that when I walk into the classroom, the first thing I ask the kids is, where do you think your beef comes from? And it takes them a really, really long time to get to, it comes from a ranch. Their typical first answer is, it comes from the store. And it's like, okay, but where was the beef at before the store? So part of what I do is kind of help teach them about where their food comes from. Then this right here, I do a little mock monitoring thing with them. So I tie it back into range and health is important because that's where your food's coming from. And if we all want that endless supply of beef or hamburgers or whatever your preferred thing to eat is. And without range management and monitoring, we could have an issue with there not being enough vegetation. So it's kind of cool to see it click in their head when I tie all of that back together at the end of the lesson. And so we also asked them about if they're interested in an ag-related career. And the last time that we were able to teach this, I was really happy also that almost 50% of the kids that there was over 400 kids that were part of the survey. About 50% of them said that they were interested in an ag career. So that was very hopeful because I feel like there's not a lot of kids that are really interested in going into ag these days, and we want to keep it going. And so again, since it is an NRCD program, Tano NRCD, and then a local rancher, Lori Brown, who lets us use her ranch as part of the end of the lessons and the field trip. She provides funding, and then of course we in Extension provide some funding as well. And then just a little bit about some of the grants I've been able to bring to the county. This top one is probably the biggest grant that I've got going right now. And basically, we're just calling it the Beginning Farmer Rancher Grant. So it's a multi-year grant, and we're starting out, so we're able to offer free workshops for everybody through this grant, so that way the cost is not an issue. And so we're starting at basic ranching 101 topics and then moving all the way up to the more complicated at the end of it. And so the idea is to bring in new farmers or ranchers that are interested but don't really know how to get started. And then the second one, the risk management, that was actually came at a really good time. It was right kind of at the height and towards the end of the really bad drought. I guess we're kind of getting into a drought again, but the 2016 drought, it was kind of coming at the end of 2017. It was kind of coming at the end of that. And that was just trying to offer drought mitigation to ranchers, This bovine reproductive simulator I was very proud of. I had wanted to buy that since I had started, because you don't want to just let someone try to artificially inseminate a cow just without any experience. So this bovine simulator is what I showed in that prior picture, and basically it's just like a fake back end of the cow. And so with that money, we were able to buy the simulator and a group of culled cows so that we could start having those workshops. Unfortunately, we've had one, and then we had a second one, and unfortunately it was right of the height of COVID happening, and we got an email. We had done one day of the workshop and got an email from the president of the university saying, shut everything down. So unfortunately, we had to send our participants home, but of course, as soon as this is over, we're gonna get back on track with having that workshop, because we have a waiting list for it, actually. This is some funding that I'm using to start the baseline of the Forage Nutrition Project. I definitely plan to keep that going for at least 3 years. We're wanting to look at how forage nutrition changes with precipitation and geology, because there surprisingly are a lot of differences. This is just helping folks understand droughts, and also giving people rain gauges to help them kind of track rainfall, and then if they have a long-term rainfall data set, they'll kind of be able to understand what might be happening on the ground later. And then this is just the last one. We were trying to do an educational program about NEPA. And that is my presentation. Hopefully I stay within my 10 minutes. I didn't wear my watch today.
You're good, Ashley.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does anyone have any questions?
Tommy, do you have any questions for Ashley?
Mr. Chair, I do not. I just want to thank U of A in general for their involvement, and Ashley in particular for all the work she does for Gila County. A lot of that is just raw, on-the-ground economic development, if you look at it like that. I particularly appreciate their involvement with Toronto Natural Resource Conservation District's ag education program that culminates in Ag Days on Lori Brown's place. And I so much appreciate continuing the Reading the Range program. That's worth its weight in gold, actually, Mr. Chair. But Ashley, thank you just so much.
Thank you, Tommy.
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
Ashley, thank you very much. There's so much ranching done in our area, and we benefit from it so much that
Thank you.
I do believe if it wasn't for a lot of your tests and a lot of your information, there's places that we wouldn't have cattle. So I thank you very much for continuing to help keep cattle on the open range.
That's my favorite part of my job.
And prove
so.
to people that it is. So
Great. Yeah.
thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Same with me, Ashley. You guys are awesome. I can just tell you hands down, without our extension folks, there would not be any cattle on the range right now. You know, it's easy to talk about like your range monitoring, reading the range program. And when you say like from September till April, that's pretty quick when you say it. But there's a lot of miles and a lot of long, hard days associated with those miles. But that gives everybody on the ground, including the Forest Service. The Forest Service has finally gotten to a point where they're incorporating all that information into their NEPA documents. They have found that they have to have that information too. So without these guys, it'd be a whole different story. So thank you, and thank everybody that's involved. Thanks for being here today, too.
Thank you, Woody. It was good to see you guys.
You too.
Should I wipe this off? Is that
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go right ahead. Okay. You good? Okay. So moving on to number 2, we'll get into the public hearing, or moving on from number 2 to number 3, public hearings. And what we're going to do, we're going to start with number A, letter A, and this is a public hearing, information, discussion, action to approve, deny, or modify a conditional use permit application number CUP-20-20-01 submitted by Michael Luster to allow a 3-story, 34-foot tall building height for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family residence with a garage and a residential R1L use district of the Whispering Pines subdivision. Mr. Scott Vizan, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I appreciate this opportunity to present for your consideration a conditional use permit application to allow an additional story and 4-foot in vertical height to a single-family residence in the R1L use district. This district limits buildings to 2 stories and 30 feet in height as measured per the definition of building height in the zoning ordinance without a conditional use permit. After the board held a public hearing on July 28, 2020, the board voted to continue this agenda item to allow the public an additional opportunity to address the board with any new information. I have 2 items of new information. Number 1, the county's interpretation of the zoning ordinance and Arizona state statutes is the Planning and Zoning Commission shall act in an advisory capacity to the board and does not make decisions. It is not necessary for the applicant to file an appeal to the board since the commission only makes a recommendation and the CUP must always go before the board for a decision. And then number 2, it has been determined that sufficient protest has been filed to require a unanimous vote of the board to approve the CUP with or without conditions. Again, I thank the board for this opportunity and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Scott. Tommy, do you have any questions for Scott?
Mr. Chair, I have kind of a technical question to start with. I'd like to know, it looks to me like that the roof itself is like a 12-to-1 pitch. I'm wondering what pitch we require for our snow load up there.
Supervisor Martin, it is, I believe it's 11-12 pitch is what has been installed. And for a 40-pound snow load, you can, just depends. 412 is common. We calculated that a 512 pitch in this situation would bring the height down to 30 foot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
I don't believe I do either of you, Scott. I think I've heard, everything from the last meeting and everything. So I think I'm good on that part of it. And I think we're good enough.
Okay, I'll get this cleaned up and you can
Go right ahead.
start.
And so, Jackie, are you going to read this in?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will. If it's all right with you, I'm also, I can come up there and then come back to my desk and see if there are any other, later in the process, see if there are any other comments. So I'm going to carry my little mask on my little arm. So I'm going to read a summary of the comments that have been submitted so far that are attached to the agenda and so are part of the actual record, but for a summary to be read aloud. We have on August 5th a letter from Michael Porter at 407 West Scott Drive, a retired certified residential appraiser. The comments have no opinion in favor or against, but there are some points. Subject home would be listed as non-conforming home since it's a 3-story home in an area of all 1- and 2-story homes. Lenders do not like non-conforming homes and would expect a market value deduction for this. Bullet point 2, the real problem is for the 1-story homes on each side. A 3-story home, especially as positioned on the lot, would be an adverse condition. This would result in a reduction of market value, which would be in the tens of thousands of dollars. Point 3, Mrs. Lester's comment that her home will be the second nicest in the neighborhood and would raise property values is presumptuous on her part. While the value of her home may be higher than the majority of the homes, and it may increase the average property values in the neighborhood, the real effect would be to raise property taxes for all without raising the market value of individual homes. Point 4, the architect Long Design knew the design did not meet county codes and requirements since they stated this to a member of the P&Z in parentheses commission that called them during the July 18th meeting. Comments dated August 7, letter from Tana Wilkinson, daughter of Mike Porter, address not stated, and as an heir to Mr. Porter's residence. This one is listed as opposed with the following bullet points summary.
The home being built is not in line with regulations, so if it is approved, it may open the door to other issues of this type. Bullet point 2, Ms. Wilkinson is offended by Mrs. Lester's 728 comment that the Lester home would be the second nicest home in the neighborhood. Bullet point 3, regardless of the board's decision, there will be a financial impact to the community. If the CUP is not approved, the trickle effect in property tax increases may result. If the CUP is approved, property values will decrease. A petition signed by 32 people. Of those, 15 people signed that live on Scott Drive. August 14, from Teresa Richardson at 3261 Neal Drive, is opposed. She requests that the Board of Supervisors enforce the zoning code and not allow construction of a 3-story house. The bullet point, quote, the Lester's architect admitted to knowingly submitting a house plan to the county that was illegal and one that required a CUP that they had not applied for, end quote. And bullet point 3, the subject home will have a negative impact on the neighborhood and for far longer. Bullet point 4, the house is not harmonious or compatible with the community. And August 14, a letter from Michael Harper for his client Robert Newman to Jefferson Dalton, Deputy Gila County Attorney, Civil Bureau Chief, regarding Mr. Dalton's reply to Mr. Harper's public records request. This one is listed in the opposed column. Mr. Harper contests that, quote, there was no notice of appeal filed from the decision of the Gila County Planning and Zoning Commission by the Lesters. Gila County Zoning Code Section 101.3 C4 expressly requires such an appeal in order to allow review by the Board of Supervisors. And so that's a summary of the letters and comments that have been provided so far. And Marion is prompting me to say that the petition signed by 32 people is also attached to the record.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
So I have a question for you, Jeff. When we vote on this, whatever way it goes, does it have to be a unanimous vote because of the petition? Does that throw us into that?
Yeah, there have been enough protests filed that it exceeds the 20% requirement in the ordinance, which triggers the requirement of a unanimous vote by the board in order to approve the conditional use permit.
Okay, thank you. So before we get this kicked off, and hopefully folks out there listening on YouTube and watching, we will hold this to a 3-minute comment period time today. We've had a lot of comments already. We're looking for new comments. If there's something new out there that hasn't already been said that pertains to the property or process, we'd like to hear it. I'm not going to listen to any personal attacks or assaults in any direction today. So, and then with that, I think we're ready to go on.
If
Tim?
I could just ask one question before we go into that. Jeff is available. Okay, if there is no unanimous decision for or against, what would happen to the structure at this point if the board does not unanimously approve one direction or the other?
So, can I ask some questions so I understand the question? So if the board does not unanimously approve the application,
Yes.
then it wouldn't be granted. The board could do it in part or in full, too. If the board didn't approve anything, then there would be no conditional use permit issued.
Okay, so my question beyond that is then what would happen to the structure?
That's a more complicated question because they have a permit. The county gave them a permit, they built the house. And so I think that's a question that needs probably a long discussion of options and.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
Real close, because
Yeah.
you're soft-spoken.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, because like I say, we're here to try to make a decision today, and if we don't, then it's Katie bar the door, because who knows?
And if the board is capable of voting to go into executive session if the board chooses to do that.
Okay, thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you.
Are you good, Tim?
I'm good.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
my question for clarification, it is entirely possible that there are folks waiting in
Yes.
Payson as well as here, so do you have a process?
You know, I was going to go ahead and go through these first here. And then, Cheryl, do we have people up there?
No, sir, we don't.
Okay.
So they're all here.
So we're good. We're good in
Thank you.
Payson. If, Cheryl, by chance somebody shows up, just let me know, okay? Okay, so with that then, Jackie, we're good? And then we'll go ahead and watch the YouTube channels for any comments coming across YouTube on this. You're watching that right there? And so once we start, Kathy, I'll have you go ahead and do the timing on this if somebody, you know, is going to have a long spiel. So, because I want to try and keep it to the 3 minutes. We got a long meeting. So with that, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing, and let's start with the first one. Missy, please.
Mr. Chair, and the people coming in that have been outside, hopefully they've been watching YouTube and understand that it is 3 minutes.
I'm hoping.
Okay.
Good morning. Yeah. So Mr. Harper, I guess just state your name and all that and address. And today we are going to hold it to the 3 minute deal. So thank you, sir.
I'll make it quick. Michael Harper, 111 West Cedar Lane in Payson, Arizona. I had written a letter that was referenced briefly to Mr. Dalton, and I want to...
When you're finished, can that copy go to Marion?
Sure.
The clerk needs a copy as well.
Yep. I think there's a very, very serious legal issue here, and I do not believe that this board has the ability to vote on this because it was determined by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there was no appeal filed. And so I'm not looking to the law on this. The law supports my position. I'm looking to the board of the very Planning and Zoning ordinance that this board adopted less than a year ago. This is the Gila County Planning and Zoning ordinance. And if you look on the third page in the package I just gave you, at the bottom, the very last number, it says the Planning and Zoning Commission shall hear, review, determine compatibility requirements, and make the decision regarding all conditional use permits. So that is the structure that Gila County put into place. The other part of that allows this board, if there's an appeal filed, to review it is on page 11 in your package. And it says in paragraph 4, appeals of the decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission may be made to the Board of Supervisors and must be filed in writing with the Community Development Division within 30 days following the decision. I made a public records request. There was no appeal filed. That's the end of the story. The county would be going against its own rules by acting on this today. The county would be ignoring its own procedural requirements that it set forth by acting on this application when the Planning and Zoning Commission is the entity designated to decide these, and when the county has said that there has to be an appeal filed, and the county has admitted to me that there wasn't one. So I don't understand how this board can legally take any action without completely undermining its very own rules. You'd be acting in contradiction of your own rules by acting on this today. And it's quite clear in my view. So I'll answer any questions, but it's not even close. It's just not even close. This board adopted this document less than a year ago. This board set this program in place. Everybody has a right to rely upon this. And to shift what's ultimately going to happen if there's a conditional use permit issued, this whole problem where there was a mistake made is going to be shifted. The results of that are going to be shifted to the homeowners. And the homeowners didn't do anything wrong. There's no question about that. There was a mistake made in the county level. And you know what my mom told me? If I make a mistake, I live with the consequences of my mistakes. And so how this would get shifted to the local homeowners, and they would have to live with something that's clearly nonconforming based upon a vote that's not even authorized by the Board of Supervisors' own rules, I just don't understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got this one right here for you too, Marion. This sheet. Okay. Our next one. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what we're going to have you do is state your name and address, and we're good. Here you go, Marion.
Good morning. My name is Robert Newman, and I live at 649 Scott Drive.
Okay, Robert, now before you get started, we're going to hold to the 3-minute rule today.
Yes,
so we'll have Kathy timing this and everything. So go ahead when you're ready.
Not much of a public speaker, but I'll
That's
do my
okay.
best. I've owned the property at 649 for about 25 years. Sorry that I'm late to the party, but I was never invited to either the Luster Zoom meeting or the Planning and Zoning meeting hosted by Scott Buzan. Even though I'm the property directly north of the Luster family mansion, in accordance with the county's own guidelines, Mr. Buzan quoted statement, "Everyone within 300 feet of the subject property will be notified." I was not. Yet I had to hear about these meetings from a neighbor that I never met. Since then, I've become engaged in the situation and have hired legal representation, which you're aware of. Little about me. I'm a business owner in the Valley who is engaged in a daily basis of pulling permits. I have worked with almost every city and municipality in Maricopa County and several in California. I've never had a technician approve or authorize any plans, especially when there's a variance being considered. I've also never had a technician or counterperson say there's no requirement for that. There's always a requirement, or you wouldn't have to submit plans to begin with for approval. There are several variances included in the Luster Mansion, 2 of which Planning and Zoning didn't want to hear about. Unfortunately, the flood and septic issues will come up sooner or later. A little bit more about me. I was raised in a Catholic home by a mother who was raised in a convent. In every room of our house, we had a Jesus picture. You all know what that is. This is my new Jesus picture right here. This is taken from my driveway, 72 feet away from the house. Everybody see that? This is my new Jesus picture. I hope it doesn't become yours. This situation should have been dealt with on March 21st when it was first discovered. Instead, the county has tried to make it our problem. It is time for the board to do the right thing and deny this CUP. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Homer, you want to go ahead and tell Missy we'll have the next one? Yeah. Good morning. So we'll have you state your name, your address. We're going to hold you to 3 minutes. We're looking for new comments that hasn't been brought out or whatever. You know, if there's something new you want to add to this, and then whether or not you're opposed or for it.
My name is Michael Hatfield. I live at 631 West Scott Drive. I'm 2 houses away. I guess that's to the south.
Oh. Do I need to say that over?
No, you're good.
Okay.
So I don't have a whole lot to say I'm opposed to the CUP. I want to just have everybody follow the rules as they're written. I don't understand all this personal stuff because the people saying it have never even met me. I just barely have met the Lesters today, really, and I haven't talked to them ever, or you guys either. There was some weird comments made at the last meeting. So all I'm asking, and I'm here for my wife who couldn't come, is can you guys just make the rules stick the way they're supposed to be? Do not approve the CUP. so that all the neighbors that build in the future can also follow the same rules. We don't want to lose our property value, as the other gentleman stated, and we just want to have a nice neighborhood with no trouble. So that's really why I'm here, is to say I oppose and to basically beg you guys, let's just follow the rules and not approve the CUP.
Thank you, sir.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. If you would, just let them know next one come in, please.
Yes, sir.
You want to wipe it down?
I didn't see anything touched.
Okay. Good morning. So what we're going to do is you can state your name and address, and then we'll hold you to the 3-minute deal this morning. And we're looking for new comments. If is there something out there that hasn't already been said? We want to hear it, and we'll go from there. And then whether or not you're opposed or for it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Heidi Swati. I live at 289 West Roundup Way in Whispering Pines. I am a full-time resident of Whispering Pines. My family and I have owned a home there for over 30 years. I live in a 2-story house on 1.3 acres, and the reason I am opposed to this conditional use permit is because I have a vacant lot next to me. So I know if this conditional use permit is approved, that that opens the door for a 3-story house to block the sun next to me, and I don't want that to happen. So I believe that there's rules and regulations for the building codes for a reason, and that is to maintain a certain aesthetic in a neighborhood and to make sure that all the houses fit. I have a question for the board, if I may ask.
Go ahead.
Okay. Have you had a chance to actually view the house in the last 2 weeks since the last meeting?
Part of us has and part of us hasn't, other than pictures.
Okay. So by part, there's 3 of you total, right? So
Yes.
both of you gentlemen have seen it?
I've looked at the pictures, and Tim's been up there to personally look at it.
Okay. Pictures really don't show the whole picture unless you actually drive by it. Just some information for you. Also, I submitted on behalf of 31 neighbors a petition, I believe Wednesday of last week. Have you had a chance to review the petition? Okay. Attached to the petition is a map showing in yellow the houses that are opposed to the CUP for the Lester 3-story house. And really for us, the issue is 3 stories. If you bring it down to 2 stories, it automatically addresses the height issue. So really the 3 stories is what we don't want. We don't have any 3-story houses in our neighborhood, and we don't want to have any 3-story houses in our neighborhood. It's about a house. It's not about a person. So if you've had a chance to look at the map, you can see that the 2 houses behind this house signed the petition, 2 houses in front of the house signed the petition, as well as both houses on either side signed this petition to oppose this CUP, as well as many, many neighbors down Scott Drive. And I'm sure you've had a chance to look at the map, so you've seen the individuals that are concerned with this house remaining 3-story. I know I'm getting close on time, so I just wanted to mention that there were several people in the neighborhood that were afraid to sign this petition for reasons of retribution by Scott Buzan, who's the Director of Community Development for our area. So this doesn't solely recognize all the people in the neighborhood that are opposed. And people were afraid because they're going to need they're going to need permits in the future to possibly build, and they're concerned with that, as they should be.
So one thing I want you to understand, and I hope you go home and pass this along. We don't want anybody to be afraid of anything as far as retribution. And maybe this is a discussion for later down the road. I, for one, would really like to see what you think retribution is or what's been going on that would make you think there would be a problem.
Absolutely.
So, but that's for a later discussion.
Okay.
But for today, thank you.
So I can contact you so we can have
Yes.
this conversation after the meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because there's many senior citizens in the neighborhood that feel like they have been harassed.
Okay.
So just wanted to put that on the record. All right, thank you again for your time today.
And if you would, when you go out, just have Missy send the next one in, please.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you might ask them to wipe after themselves.
I can do that.
If they touch it.
Yeah. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So what we're going to do today is, in a minute, you'll state your name and address and all that. And then we've had a lot of comments, a lot of assaults and all that. We don't want to hear any of that anymore. So we're looking for something new, something that pertains, and you'll be on 3 minutes.
All right, fine, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dan Abbott. My address is 407 West Neil Spur in Whispering Pines. I don't know how much has been brought up in previous statements that you may have received, but my wife was the one that when we first drove by this house, it was still in framing. They were just starting the third story, and that's what brought us to where we are right now. We contacted the county at that time, asked them if this was right. We were told at the time that they were only permitted to put a two-story up. We told them exactly what was going on, and they said, well, they're not supposed to go any further. They're supposed to stop now. We'll contact the Lesters with this information. The thing that bothered me, I guess, the most is that there were no red tags put on this project. I mean, we had variants that had to be approved or disapproved. And while that process is going on, I've never seen it where they haven't red tagged a project until an approval has come through. So that would be my biggest concern. And the problem was that the builders continued to build on this project even after we had brought this information up. Before they put the third story totally on, now they've gone to the point of putting the roof on. They put windows in yesterday, continuing the project. So if there's a problem with them having to bring this project down to the two stories as it was, that is their problem. That is not the problem of the community. And we shouldn't, I think from the board's standpoint, you should not look at them from the point of, oh, gee, they have this much already constructed and we don't want to do something that would make them put it down. We were told that they were supposed to stop. They did not. They continued. So anything that they do at this point that they have to take that project down, that is at their expense and their own fault. And I guess that's probably the only thing that I want to address that you haven't seen so far.
So I would take it you're opposed to this, CUP.
Yeah, that would be my guess, too.
Okay.
Very much
Thank
so.
you. Thank
bet.
you for your time.
Uh-huh.
Hey, could you just wipe that down just a little bit real quick for the next one?
I sure can.
And Homer, can you go and tell Missy to start the next one in, please? Thank you, sir. You have a good day.
There's a garbage can right there,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you.
Good morning. So what we're going to do is have you state your name and address. You probably already heard it, but I'll give you the whole spill again. Then when you're done, just take that rag and that stuff, wipe it down around there for us, would you please?
And I do windows too.
Do you? Stick around.
Okay.
Go ahead, and you'll be on 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Patrice Abbott, and I live at 407 West Neil Spur. And I hope this is something new. I have to just appeal to you that the 45-minute diatribe that Mrs. Lester was allowed to have, please, that was so misrepresentative, and it hurt us to hear that she feels fearful of us. We don't know why. Nobody ever I could not even tell you who she is. I think I know her sitting out there. We've never talked to her. And but whatever she said then went in, and it produced a comment from you that got in the paper that it's really ugly up there. And I have to tell you, it is not ugly up there. It's only as ugly as that individual made it. We, at no time, expected anybody to get approval to move into our community. That was the stupidest thing I think I've ever heard. What I was trying to say to her was that we were offering, she should have come forward and asked the people that had been there for decades and decades about any problems. I want to just say, though, that excuse me 1 second. I have the real problem with her stating that she did not know the height because the county could not give her an answer. She said that her architect sent her in when she went in for her counter approval or taking papers in, and that she asked the ladies at the counter at that time, what is the height out there? Well, who in the heck, I mean, how would a counter person know every jurisdiction's height requirements, etc.? That is the responsibility of her architect. And I don't know any architect that would send their client in to get that information. So I'm sorry, I just had to get that down. I think that was, the whole thing was ridiculous, but please, we are not ugly up there. We are a wonderful community and we're trying to keep it that way. So therefore, I am opposed to the CUP because I think it was brought about in deceitful ways.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
And if you would, just wipe that down, and we'll have the next one start their way in here. Can we do that, Homer? Let Missy know?
Mm-hmm. If you're going to be influenced by what she was saying, which it almost sounded like you guys were, the emotionalism.
You can leave that up there on top.
It almost sounded like you were influenced by that, and I'm telling you, don't be.
We're here to listen to everybody, so thank you.
She was exaggerating. I think she wanted to be on an episode of Desperate
there you
Housewives.
go. Thank you. Well, you can leave that jug here. We're going to need it again.
Oh, I need this at home.
Yeah, I think we're going to need it before the day's over. So, good morning, sir. Come on in.
Good morning.
And so you know the ropes?
I think so.
Just your name and address. We'll hold you to 3 minutes, and we're looking for something new.
Well, my
we've been
name's
through all the
James
rest.
McCracken. I live at 641 West Scott Drive, the first property south of the Lusters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to tell you that I'm not against the Lusters. They're my friends. I'm against the county not holding everybody to the same standards. That's my only beef in this whole deal. They can leave the house like it is, in my opinion. I don't have a problem with it. I do have a problem with the fact that everyone else has to put a septic system in, and they got an antiquated old two-person RV approved. And the leach fields come to within 40 feet of my well. That's my only water source. That, and they built in the middle of the worst flood zone. I've lived there 12 years full time. We've had 3 humongous rains that flooded Scott Drive and down through the gully in front of my property and in front of where they're building the house. They've built a dam. I hold the county responsible for that. The gentleman that is the flood control argued with me for an hour that it never flooded out there. And I've seen it 3 times. So I'm for the Lusters being able to build and have a home here. This is America. They should be able to buy a lot and build on it. But I think the county needs to govern the rules and regulations. That's all I got to say. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm happy they're new neighbors, but I do think the county could do a better job. And there's a lot of good people work for county, I'm sure. Maybe they don't know their job, and maybe they haven't been trained well. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you go and just wipe that down real quick?
Oh,
Would you please?
I didn't
Yeah,
know.
there you go.
I didn't know it was a
Do
janitor.
you do windows too? The last lady does.
Hey, I live at home by myself. I do
You
it
do
all.
windows in, don't you? Yeah. Thank you for taking the time out today to come down. Homer, do we have another one? Okay. Cheryl, do we have anyone that showed up there?
No, sir.
And Jackie, did we have anything come across YouTube?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. You can just
There's
throw
the
that
garbage
away
right
right there.
there.
There you go.
I got a good.
You have a good day.
Thank you.
Is Mrs. Lester the last one? Okay, so we'll just state your name and address and all that, and we don't want to rehash anything that we went over in the first meeting or anything else, or we're just looking for the new stuff.
Yeah.
And you'll be on 3 minutes too.
Deborah Lester, 645 Scott Drive. To me, with all the comments like the Jesus picture, our home is going to be that big no matter what. The question is about 4 feet off the peak. Our house can be 30 feet tall, and so that monstrosity is not what we wanted. It was the only thing we could build from floodplain. And so when I hear all the comments again, there's not one person that is really addressing that what the cup addresses is the 4 feet off the peak of the roof. Our walls are going to be the same height. Nothing else about the monstrosity or how much they're offended by this house. We did not want to build here. We don't have any control over the FEMA floodplain and what they decided. We followed all of the rules. So we did follow all the rules, but the part I feel like is not being addressed is that to bring the peak of our roof down 4 feet, the expense for the next stage of where this goes, on the taxpayers and the community, the county has said every time that they're responsible for this. We have no responsibility. And so that is the part, to me, the price of this for all of the legal fees, for all of 4 months, all that we have been through, the whole process of this is an enormous amount that I feel like nobody is addressing. Do their taxes want to bring the peak of our roof down 4 feet tall? And then I want for her to say, I want to be on Real Housewives, is again the personal attack I want you to hear. And everything I've quoted them as far as what has happened is documented in the community meeting. I've quoted them directly. And it's well documented. So that is the part where I'm not interested in being part of the Real Housewives. What we're interested in is building the home the county gave us approval to build on, and to finish that project that we have been stuck and our home is being weathered. We were given permission to weatherize our house. So we have not done anything underhanded. Not one time have we been accused by the county of having any responsibility with this. We are the ones that are caught in a double bind, and that to me is why the cup is the very value or purpose of the cup. The county made a mistake. And that part of how it's going to impact the taxpayers, how it's going to impact us, has massive consequences for 4 feet off the peak of our roof. So I just wanted to comment that not one person that's come up here has addressed what the true outside impact on this community, whether it is their property values. 4 feet off the peak of the roof is the only thing external that will be changed, and so nobody has addressed that issue.
Thank you. Thank you for taking your time and coming down.
You need me to wipe off?
Yeah, Jackie can get it. She'll get it. Thank you. That's the last one. Yes. So we still don't have anybody in Payson, right, Cheryl? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I did hear Mr. Dalton say something about the potential for an executive session.
Yes. So at this time, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing part of this. Tommy, what do you think? You got something you want to say?
You know, Mr. Chair, I think we made a mistake, and I think we were duped into it. And so that doesn't, that's just kind of floating in my head right now because that was the last thing said. I'd really like to see what Tim thinks. I know he went and he looked, and he's the builder of the bunch of us. And then I really would like to know, Woody, what you think. I believe you went and looked also. You looked at the neighborhood, you looked at the building. What do you guys think?
Thank you, Tommy. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay. I did, being that I've been in construction most of my life, I did go up and tour, not just around the house, not just that house, but I drove the entire neighborhood. I didn't do research on what was built 15, 20 years ago, but there's some buildings in that area that I don't know where you would put a tape measure, but they got to be 40 foot tall from the low end. There's some real tall buildings there. depending on the slope of the hill that you measure from. One side it might be 20, the other side it's 40. So, where do you draw the line? So I think the neighborhood does have a lot of tall buildings there. I also think that if it's 30 feet, you can build a one-story house that's 30 feet tall. You can build a two-story that's 30 feet tall, and you're still going to block a view and you're going to block the sun. So kind of where I'm at with it, and if you're in a floodway and they tell you got to be 6-foot-high pillars before you can start your first story, I just think it's intelligent to go ahead and make it a place to park your cars. Water can still go through it, and then you put your two-story house above it. I think there's a lot of people there with 6-foot basements that they wish they didn't have. I wish, because they stayed within the two-story. But where I'm at this point, a conditional use permit. What if somebody wanted to put a 4-story with 6-foot ceilings and stay within the 30-foot? To me, from the outside of the building, 30 foot is a magic number, because how do you know if there's 1 story or 3 stories? Depends on windows. I mean, I saw windows that should have been in an attic space. So are they using that attic space? I don't know. I wasn't able to get in the house. Is that a loft? Is that, you don't know by the windows. So kind of where I'm at is it doesn't matter whether it's a 1-story house or a 2-story house or a 3-story house. The 30-foot would be what would be visible from the outside. And that's what would be blocking a little bit of sunlight or a little bit of view. So I kind of where I'm at is we get into things like this, and when it gets up here, no one's going to win. It's a losing situation any way we go. And the thing of it is it's already been in front of our board. And those people are volunteers. They help us try to get situations like this solved early on. And so, they've already ruled on this, and so if we go against them, what appreciation are we showing them for them volunteering to set through some of these meetings that they have to try to help us with some of the ordinances that we have? So, like I say, at this point, I don't think there's any winners. And yeah, we did make a mistake, but kind of where I'm at is if I were asked to make a motion right now, it would probably be to accept it, providing that it meets a 30-foot code, which is required for the neighborhood. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Tim.
I love it, Tim. Lee, what's yours?
Okay. My biggest thing on this whole thing is what the attorney just showed us on our ordinance. So if we put in there as recent as November 5th of 2019, where we revised this thing, and then we're going against what we're already saying, I guess. I mean, what's your opinion on that, Jeff?
Normally, you think of a notice of appeal as being the document that vests an upper body with the authority to review a decision of a lower body. And without that notice of appeal, then the upper body doesn't have jurisdiction to review the decision. But in this case, we have a problem, because when you look at zoning, zoning is not a matter of common law. The only reason that a jurisdiction has authority to zone is because it's been given that authority by the state. For example, the city of Houston, which I believe is the 4th largest city in the United States, has no zoning. Hard to imagine what it's like there. There's no zoning there because there's never been authority that's been given and accepted to do it. So in Arizona, the state has the authority to zone, and it is given authority to the counties, and the counties don't have any authority that is greater than what the state gave it. So when you look at the statute, it's ARS section 11-802. It says, the Board of Supervisors of a county shall form a planning and zoning commission to consult with and advise it regarding matters of planning, zoning, and then other things. So in the first paragraph, it sets up what we understand, which is that the commissioners are hands to help the board. They give the board advice. That's the only authority they're given. Then in the next paragraph, paragraph B of section 11-802 says, the commission shall act in an advisory capacity to the board and may, or if requested by the board, shall make a report or recommendation. Again, the commission is given limited authority and only for the purpose of being helping hands. Just the commission is a servant to the board. And this all makes sense because in our representative republic, it's the elected officials that are accountable to the public, not appointed commissioners. If the voters don't like what the supervisors do, they can be voted out of office. But you can't vote a commissioner out of the commission because they're appointed. And then finally in paragraph D of section 11-802, it says, paragraph J, I should say, the commission shall, this is section 4, subsection 4, let me start over. The commission shall transmit all of its recommendations, decisions, findings, reports, and official actions, regardless of vote, to the Board of Supervisors, period. It's a mandate. They have to transmit everything they do directly to the Board of Supervisors, and there's no requirement that anybody have to file a notice of appeal before they transmit. It's an automatic transfer. And so you say, well, why does the county ordinance then require a notice of appeal? Bad ordinance. Poorly drafted. Because it's not a valid part of the ordinance. The ordinance also doesn't require it, if Mr. Harper didn't go into it, but that's not the only provision regarding conditional use permit. The ordinance also states that to get a conditional use permit, you follow the amendment section of the ordinance for rezoning. So if you go to that section and you treat this like a rezoning, what you have to do is you go to the commission, have a public hearing, then you go to the Board of Supervisors, have another public hearing, and the Board of Supervisors makes the final decision. And there's no discussion about having a notice of appeal. Nothing's required. So the ordinance itself is conflicting. It doesn't clearly say you have to have a notice of appeal. And when you have a conflict in an ordinance about what is the thing to do, we have to go back to that thing I was talking about earlier, that zoning is not a matter of common law. In common law, a person can do a lot with their property. They're not restricted by any zoning, setbacks, height requirements, nothing. And we'd have to go to common law and say, well, there's a difference of a way that you interpret this ordinance. So let's take a look at what we have here. We have a law, zoning, which is in derogation of the common law. That means we're going to defer to the rights of the property owner. And the rights of the property owner are build pretty much what you want to build on your property. So even analyzing our own ordinance and the ambiguity in it, the unclarity in it, we still come out with deciding they don't need to file a notice of appeal. But as I said earlier, we don't really need to get to that because the legislature never gave the commission authority to make final decisions regarding this kind of a matter.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes, sir.
tack on into that?
You absolutely can.
Supervisors. The ordinance that the November date in 2019 was a revision to certain sections. It was not a completely revised ordinance that was adopted. It was just one or two sections only, and this section was not updated in 2019.
So then what's reflected in this is from the old ordinance from originally, huh?
Right. The original ordinance, I believe, was adopted in, I want to say, 1959, and it's evolved through the years, and it's been rewritten or sections at a time, and I believe there was one complete rewrite back in under Mr. Gould's term years ago. But since then, it's just been sections that we've been have brought in front of the commission, or excuse me, in front of the board to approve. We are in the process of completely rewriting the ordinance, and you'll be getting that to look at down the road. But we're a little behind because of the virus. But yeah, and trying to clean up these things that we've come across now that have been in the ordinance for years that do conflict and definitely go against state statute. And with Mr. Dalton's help, we're trying to get that clarified so that we have a good working ordinance that is hopefully easier to understand and doesn't step on its own toes.
Sooner is better, Scott.
Yes, I understand.
So
I've been given that directive from my supervisor.
So my last question for you, Jeff, is sitting in these chairs right now, we have the right to vote on this and make a decision.
Yes, you do.
Jackie?
Mr. Chair, I just want to let you know that Mr. Harper, who is still here following the public hearing, has indicated that he would like to come address what has just been said.
Our public hearing is closed, and so from my standpoint, unless you advise me otherwise, Jeff, I'm more willing to go on with what we need to do today.
I think you have the authority to do what you just said.
Okay. Tommy, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Mr. Chair, I am with him. I would like them to have to meet the height that everybody else out there we think has met. But what they do inside is past me. And if Tim would like to make the motion that he said he would make a while ago, whatever changes he wants to make, fine, but that is where I am with this. The decision is ours to make. It's our responsibility. And I really, my only concern is that we have them meet the height requirements we think we've had everybody else meet.
Thank you, Tommy. And if you don't have any, okay, Scott?
I apologize for the interruption. My supervisor states that the motion should include who pays for the change, reduction in roof height.
Okay. Tim, unless you got something else to add to it, I'm ready to go on.
Well, that just threw me into a tornado. I mean, making that decision and then right now in about the next 2 seconds, make the decision on who pays for it's another whole story. So with that said, I would probably make a motion that we go into an executive session with that question brought to the table if I'm going to make a motion.
I have a motion to go into executive session. Do I have a second?
You've got a second, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. We'll be in executive session. We'll see you guys when we get out. Thank you. Hold tight.
And Mr. Chair, I'll need to have you hang up on this one and call me from in there.
Yes, ma'am. We'll get that going.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That one? Okay. Let's just do returning shortly.
I just got back, so I'm glad part of me's still there.
Sure am, Mr. Chair.
And are we good on our YouTube channel, Dave? We're good? And Marion, are you up and running? Okay, I'll bring this meeting back to order and ask for a motion. Oh, she is. I just asked her. So,
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve conditional use permit application number CUP-20-01 with modifications. The 30-foot height is met by changing the trusses to meet the height defined by the Healy County Ordinance definition, and that there will be no windows in the garage.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
okay, having a motion and a second, I'll call for some discussion. Tommy, do you have anything you want to chime in on this? Anything else?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, the only thing I would say is that in previous discussions, there's been a cost associated with this roof. We're not going to address that cost today. It's not on our agenda, so we're not able to do that. The staff has been instructed to go ahead and meet with Lusters and whoever else associated with this to work on it. So with that, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very
Scott.
much.
All right, moving on to the next one. 3B, information, discussion, action to adopt Gila County Ordinance Number 2020-02-open outdoor fire, which supersedes Ordinance Number 11-02-open outdoor fire. Jackie Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. We discussed this. We've had some discussions about the Gila County's open outdoor ordinance 1102. Most recently, as a public work session, I believe back in April or May, where we talked about the real conflict we have between the Gila County's open outdoor fire ordinance and where it conflicts with the Tonto National Forest's open outdoor fire definitions. And just for some history, we've had an open outdoor fire ordinance which basically bans open outdoor fires at certain times of the year since, I believe, 1998. This is, and then we revised it in, I believe, 01 and in 11, so this will be our fourth revision. In the intervening times, back when this was first adopted, it really was, what it plainly says is that when the Tonto Forest goes into a fire ban, so will the unincorporated private property, or so will the private property in the unincorporated areas. That served pretty well until the Tonto National Forest adopted, and all forests began doing a staged approach, and our ban goes into effect anytime the Tonto Forest goes into a stage 1 ban. But our definition more closely matches the Tonto Forest's stage 2 ban. And so following a work session discussion that we had earlier this year, following some conversation that I was having with the fire chiefs and with the Tonto Forest staff, it appeared that the simplest solution to make the county ordinance match what the Tonto stage 2 ban is, would be to change this up just enough so that it says that anytime the Tonto Forest goes into stage 2 or greater restrictions, that then the county's ban would apply. Another issue that we had talked about back in earlier this year had to do with, there are occasions, they aren't often, but there are occasions when a particular ranger district may go into ban before the rest of the forest, and our ordinance doesn't, as it was written 1102, doesn't allow for the ban to match the ban geographic areas. So we have included that in this proposed ordinance. I had intended for this to continue conversations into the fall because I was expecting when the summer rains hit and the forest was opened that we would be out of restrictions. And as it turns out, it didn't rain and the forest is not closed, but we are still in stage 1 restrictions in the forest. However, by ordinance, we are in what amounts to equal to stage 2 restrictions on private property. And so thus the need for us to bring this forward and try to get those matched up sooner rather than later. What is attached to the agenda is the 1102 original and the proposed ordinance with changes in red, and then the ordinance with those changes in red accepted, all the changes accepted so you could see the evolution. Following posting this, so we were on a pretty short time deadline, it has to be published. So to change an ordinance requires a public hearing, and it requires that the notice is published in the newspaper at the county seat, not necessarily the newspaper of record, for 2 weeks. And so to get all of that accomplished, I was not able to meet with the fire chiefs prior to getting to this stage, so I was on a Zoom call with the fire chiefs last week, and their comments were generally supportive. They have some other things that they'd like to see happen, but they recognize that this takes a lot of the conflict out where they're trying to enforce a ban that is more restrictive than the forest when it's in stage 1. One of the gentlemen did have a suggestion that has to do with the definitions, and you'll notice some of the changes to the one that's changes in red. I took out a lot of the whereases to try to shorten this down. I used an updated definition for open outdoor fire, which, if approved, it's what we've added says products of combustion are emitted into the ambient air without passing through a stack or chimney. That passing through a stack or chimney is new to this ordinance. It's a little broader, a little more defined, definitive definition. And then thank you. Let's go to the definitions. There you go. The old definition means any combustion of any combustible material of any type outdoors. So in researching definitions in neighboring counties, this was a more compatible definition. The fire chiefs, though, pointed out that where it says this includes burning in a burn barrel, it wasn't clear what this referred to. So I have visited with Marion, and I have a suggestion for a little bit cleaner definition that says open outdoor fire means a fire where the products of combustion are emitted directly into the ambient air without passing through a stack or chimney, and then period, and then an open outdoor fire includes burning in a burn barrel, so that it's clear what part of the burn barrel we're talking about.
Unless you put a top on it that has a flue.
Or unless you cook food, right? There are always ways around.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. Okay. So my meeting with fire chiefs was generally, they were generally supportive and in favor. I did let them know that this would be a public hearing, and that if they had comments they wanted to get on the record, that the process for that, none of them indicated that was, as long as I was, having that conversation with them and putting those kind of changes in. The only other public comment that I have received related to this, do you want me to do that now? Okay.
Go ahead.
A man named Joe Miller at 818 North Blue Spruce Circle in Payson, Arizona. And Joe is a Payson Area Natural Resources Group, Arizona Trout Unlimited. He's a 4Fry SHG representative. He's been heavily involved in natural resources and looking at fire things. He is not opposing the restricted ordinance as presented. He agrees that there is the need for flexibility in order to be consistent. His only comment is that he would hope that we can revisit addressing the sale of firewood during fire ban season, because that does present an issue locally when the forest is in stage 2 or greater, and the county is in similar elevated restrictions, and yet local convenience markets are still selling firewood to the visitors that come up. So that's his comment, and those are the comments and process that I have gone through. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jackie. Tommy, do you have any questions?
Mr. Chair, did we add the Joe Miller concern or not?
So, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Martin, because the ordinance as it stands and as posted does not address anything about the sale of fuel, that's a different matter for a different day.
All right. And other than that, Mr. Chair, for a number of years, I've discussed and asked actually for us to do something just like this, with covering up, seeing to it that we match if we need to, ranger district by ranger district, and that if there can be a fire in the campgrounds of the Forest Service, the same type of fire can be held in your backyard, or your business backyard. But anyhow, I'm all for this, and I appreciate, Jackie, you getting this together and getting it in front of us.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Supervisors. Before you go on with comments, the other place that I want to point out a little bit of a variation, under 1.3, the definition of a barbecue, we expanded that definition to read more like what the Tonto Forest definition is. They follow the Southwest Area Fire Manual that's also attached. And so we added fueled solely by liquid petroleum or LPG fuels, and then I added in bold, or other fuel that can be turned on and off. The Tonto Forest the or other fuel was an aim at addressing things like Traeger pellet grills. And another comment that one of the fire chiefs made was that recognized that left uncleaned, left with the reserve in there, a Traeger can, produce kind of the same spontaneous combustion that I'm picturing a wet stack of hay could trigger if it were not maintained. So the or other fuel in that line is an addition to our definition. That's an addition to the definition out of the Tonto Forest definition for barbecue. So that's one place where it's not exact to the Tonto Forest. It was attempting to expand it for pellet grills.
Tim, comments?
Well, the comment is when I got elected and we were doing some of these ordinances that were 50 years old and trying to make sense of them in today's world, and they just didn't. I talked to the county manager. It's like, why don't we start changing some of these ordinances that we can't make sense out of? And it's a lot of time and it's a lot of effort, Jackie. I can see that you put an awful lot of time and effort in this and making sure all your T's were crossed and your I's were dotted, and this happened and who you talked to and why you talked to, which is probably why we follow a lot of 50-year-old ordinances, because they're too darn hard to change. But Scott, with your ordinances, with planning and zoning, and Jackie helping us change ordinances just to make our world better and allow me to use my Traeger grill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie. This needed done really bad. So, yeah, we're kind of in an exceptional year. We didn't ever expect to come out of closures right back into fire restrictions, but I'm glad we're getting it done. So with that, I will go ahead and open up the public hearings. Do we have anybody in Payson that wants to talk about this?
No, sir.
Do we have anybody on YouTube? No one? And we have no one here. So I will close the public hearings and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we do adopt Gila County Resident ordinance number 2020-02, outdoor fire.
And I will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 And also, this is going to include the changes that Jackie spoke of, right? Tommy?
Yes.
Well, okay, we'll amend the motion to include the changes that Jackie spoke of. You good, Marion? Yes. Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, on to 3C, information, discussion, action to adopt resolution number 20-08-03, naming a road in the Tunnel Basin area to be called North Bluebird Road. Steve?
Thank you, Mr.
Good
Chairman, members
afternoon.
of the board. Rural Addressing had a request to name a road. The property owners submitted the request. Additional property owners were notified. Been no objections. Staff recommendation is to name the road as presented, North Bluebird Road.
Okay, Tommy, you got any comments?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
No, other than Steve, if they wanted to do it, thanks for helping them with it.
And neither do I, and so I'll open this public hearing up. And do we have anybody in Payson that wants to talk about this, Cheryl?
No.
And no one on YouTube. And no one present, so I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt resolution number 20-08-03.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Steve. Okay, get on to regular agenda items. Number 4A, information, discussion, action to set primary and secondary property tax rates for 2020 for all taxing jurisdictions within Gila County and convey tax rates for all jurisdictions to the county treasurer and adopt resolution number 20-08-01 providing for the collection of taxes for all jurisdictions by the county treasurer for fiscal year 2021. Mary Springer, you in Payson? There you are.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members, supervisors. Yes, I'm in Payson. And I've come to you today on the third Monday in August, as per statute, asking you to adopt by resolution the tax rates that we've prepared. And I see in our audience we have the treasurer, Debbie Savage, and the assessor, Joe Williams.
You bet. Tommy, do you have any questions for Mary?
I do not, Mr. Chair. Just so appreciate all the work Steve and the treasurer do on this.
And Tim?
I have no comment, thank you.
Mary, good job. So that's all I had, and with that, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we set primary and secondary property tax rates for 2020 for all taxing jurisdictions within Gila County as presented and convey tax rates for all jurisdictions to the county treasurer and adopt resolution number 20-08-01.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to B, information, discussion, action to authorize the assessor's office to issue tax roll corrections on the solar property accounts for tax years 2015 through 2018, and authorize the treasurer's office to issue refunds based on the tax roll corrections. Joe Williams. Good afternoon, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the board. A little background on this. I'll be quick. I know this is a big meeting. Many years ago, when solar panels became prevalent in Arizona, a legislature passed a law that exempted rooftop solar panels from residential property assessments. Back in 2015, the Arizona Department of Revenue decided that some of these solar panels, namely the ones that are in the parking lot of this courthouse and many schools, were producing enough electricity that it was a commodity. They decided to value and tax these solar panels. So they sent these values to the assessor's offices around the state, and we put them on the tax roll, and the treasurer's office billed them and sent tax bills out to them. This prompted lawsuits by the solar companies. After about 4 years of winding its way through the courts, the Arizona State Legislature last year passed a law, HB 2493, that invented a new valuation method for these solar panels. What we have before you is the assessor's office now values these panels according to the law. And in conclusion, what it's going to result to is about 90 to 95% of the taxes that were paid are going to have to be refunded to these companies. So this is what's before you today. I have a, Dave, if you could pull up the Excel spreadsheet. This is kind of a summary of what we're looking at. The top in the blue is the values. The bottom in the green is the actual taxes paid. The top line prior, those are the values, and then the second line revised in yellow, those are the new values as calculated according to this new House bill that was passed last year. And then down we look in the solar tax bills section, the green part, the top prior is the actual taxes that were paid, and the revised estimate in the yellow below that, that's what we need to charge them for those years, which will result in, I estimate, a total refund of about $487,000.
Well, thanks, I guess, Joe.
You got that in your pocket?
Tommy, you have some comments or questions for Joe?
No, I don't. Yeah, maybe I do. Joe, just thanks for cleaning this up and catching this up, and I appreciate the work you do. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Yeah, Joe, thanks for dealing with a lot of litigation that gets dumped on your shoulders, and all of a sudden, here you go. Now you got another job to add to the other jobs you already had. So, yeah, thank you very much. Not good news, but thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, it's kind of mixed blessing. It's good for the people we're refunding them to, so that's a good deal. You know.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, James.
That amount that Joe showed up there is the amount for all taxing entities. I have a question: that have all taxing entities that this involves in Gila County, have they been made aware of the amount of that liability that will be attributed to that entity? So their school districts, the college, and other entities, are they all aware of this?
No, Mr. Menlove, I've not made them aware of this.
And so, who's going to?
I have contacts with each of the jurisdictions. If they're going to be responsible for their portion of it, then I can reach out to them and make them aware. I've taken a look at it, Mr. Menlove and supervisors. About 33% of that number is Gila County's tax levy total. And if you include the library, the college, NAVIT, CVIT, and Gila County, it's about 40 to 45% of that number. So all the other jurisdictions would be responsible for the rest of that.
That answer your question, James?
It does answer my question. It does answer my question. Thank you.
All right. So, well, thanks for clearing it up anyway, Joe. It's good to get it settled and get it straight. We'll just work our way through it. So with that, Tommy, did you have any other questions for Joe? Did that bring anything up for you?
No, Mr. Chair, I don't. Thanks.
Tim, you good?
I'm good.
And with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the assessor's office to issue tax roll corrections on the solar property accounts for the tax year 2015 through 2018 and authorize the treasurer's office to issue refund based on the tax roll corrections.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Tommy. Having a motion and a second, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks again, Joe.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, James.
we just asked that Mr. Williams get with our finance department. We need to notify these, all these entities as soon as possible so they're aware with that. And then we need to work with them, make sure that, of what's going on so that there are no surprises with this. So, Mr. Williams, if you would get with Mary and the finance department to notify all these districts, that would be great. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to C. Information, discussion, action to approve and authorize the board chairman to electronically sign the Drug, Gang, and Violent Crime Control Grant Agreement FY 2021 Award Cycle 34-Grant Number DC-21-004 between the Gila County Sheriff's Office and the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission in the amount of $331,654 to provide continued funding for the Gila County Drug, Gang, and Violent Crimes Task Force for the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Sarah White. Good afternoon, Sarah.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. That pretty much summed up this grant agreement. This is just a renewal for the task force that we come before you every year for. We have level funding, so we're staying the same for the next fiscal year. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Sarah. Tommy, do you have any questions for Sarah?
I don't, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
No, I don't, other than thank you for reaching for these grants to help.
You bet, Sarah. Thank you, too. So with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we do approve and authorize the board chairman to electronically sign the Drug, Gang, and Violent Crime Control Grant Agreement, fiscal year 2021, award cycle 34, grant number DC-21-004.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to D, information, discussion, action to approve and authorize the board chairman to electronically sign the fiscal year Arizona Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding, ACESF, Program Grant Award Number ACESF-21-021 between the Gila County Sheriff's Office and the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission in the amount of $169,263 to provide personal protective equipment, overtime, and employee-related expenses for the period of January 20th, 2020 through January 20th, 2022. Sarah, you're it again.
Thanks, Chairman and members of the board. We were notified about this grant opportunity through the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission. We submitted the grant. It's going to provide personal protective equipment, masks, gloves, those type of things to both patrol and our jail facilities. This also, the substantial amount of this grant is going to provide for overtime-related expenses and employee-related expenses in dealing with COVID for the next 2 years. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Tommy?
No questions for me, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
No, just thanks again for reaching for these grants that help us help. Makes a big difference.
Thank you, Tim. Same for me, Sarah. So with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the authorization. I I move to approve and authorize the board chairman to electronically sign FY20 Arizona Coronavirus Energy Supplemental Funding ACESF Program Grant Award number ACESF-21-021.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, moving on to E. Information discussion action to approve an intergovernmental agreement, contract number IGA 2020-017, in the amount of $412,711.08, beginning January 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2025, that is between the Arizona Department of Health Services and Gila County Health and Emergency Management Department, which replaces contract number ADHS 16-098369 to continue providing services under the Healthy People, Healthy Communities Program. Michael O'Driscoll.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We got you, Michael.
Vice Chairman, members of the board. Yeah, this is a renewal of our grant. It's a 5-year grant site, and we go through this every year to renew this grant, and this provides us with resources in the ways to conduct our teen pregnancy tobacco program, along with our community health improvement plan, which is required every 5 years. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. So basically, it's just a renewal of a grant, and over $400,000 just for those programs.
Okay, Michael, thank you. Tommy, do you have some questions for Michael?
No, Mr. Chair, just thanking for his work.
Tim.
Yeah, you got to love approving these grant applications that someone else wants to help us run this county.
You got it. Thank you. Michael, thanks for this. And with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we do approve an intergovernmental agreement, contract number IGA 2020-017.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay, Michael, we got one more for you. Number F. Information discussion action to authorize the advertisement of requests for proposals number 072920 consultation services subgrantee for COVID-19 incident management support. Michael?
Great. Thank you again, Chair, members of the board. Some more good news about grants is there's monies available through the CARES package for health departments across the state of Arizona. We put together a package and submitted to the state health department for approval. There's 3 parts to our package. One of them was to cover some of the current staff salaries and fringe benefits. And the second part is money in there over $600,000 to purchase test kits for the residents. And the part, which this RFP refers to, is hiring temporary employees to help us run the incident command as well as contact tracing. So we were awarded $1.6 million in this grant, which is a good sizable chunk of money. And what I'm asking for is permission to advertise for the RFP for the third part of this grant to get that going forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Tommy?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
No questions.
Well, hopefully we'll get it, Michael, so thanks. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the advertisement of request for proposal number 072920, consultation services, subgrantee for COVID-19 incident management support.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. Just a point of clarification, Chairman. We actually did get awarded the 1.6 already. So the RFP is to move forward with spending some of that money that was part of the deliverables. So the good news is we actually did get the $1.6 million.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Moving on to G, information discussion action to approve purchase order number 2021-00000138 in the amount of $144,000 for the Gila House Affordable Housing Project, whereby the Gila County Community Services Department Community Action Program, CAP, will be an active partner with Gila House Incorporated, and CAP will serve as a pass-through entity for this funding that will be used to promote affordable housing in Gila County. Melissa? Good afternoon, Melissa.
Thank you, Chairman Klein and members of the board. I'm here today to ask you to approve this purchase order, and so that Gila House and CAP as an active partner, we found through our needs assessment that affordable housing is a big issue. Our housing department hosts the homeless task force, and we're working on this, and this is moving forward with that goal in mind.
Thank you, Melissa. Tommy, do you have any questions for Melissa?
No, Mr. Chair, just thanks, Melissa.
Tim?
Yeah, Melissa, thanks for keeping working on affordable for our area.
So once, Melissa, this money comes through, how far does that go? I mean, what?
So for the project, this will pay for the building and the land, and then that in turn can be leveraged moving further down in rehabilitating the building so that we have some usable space basically in the affordable housing project.
So affordable housing for us is real important. And so when we started working on our continuum of care and all that, did that help you with these?
Yes, that it was very important, if not 50% of the project, that we were already involved with other entities and partnering with other people and bringing people to the table to just not only just talk about it, let everybody know what each entity was doing and that we could work together for this.
Good deal. Thank you, Melissa. That I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve purchase order number 2021-00000138.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you very much.
On to H, information, discussion, action for the public sale of a portion of New Street as shown on Miami map number 2, GCR map 23, Gila County Records, Gila County, Arizona, to Freeport McMoran, Miami, Inc., in the amount of $1,488. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. New Street is the main gate entrance into the FMI mine. It's a wide road. A lot of it is on the mine side that we don't use and the public doesn't use. The mine's been using it. They approached us about an abandonment and purchasing it. We fully supported it. We started back, I believe, in April of this year in front of you to declare it no longer necessary for public use and start the process. We've come up to evaluation, and this is to sell that portion to the mine for the $1,488. Should you agree to it, we'll be back in probably the next meeting with a resolution to sign the quitclaim deeds and turn it over to them.
Thanks, Steve. Tommy, you have any questions for Steve?
No, Mr. Chair, I just like getting things like this dealt with, and I thank Steve for doing it.
Thanks, Tommy. Tim?
Yeah, Steve, Thank you, because I mean, if we're not using it, the public's not using it, we're responsible for it. Thanks for, if the mine's using it, then it's their responsibility mostly, so thank you for clearing that up.
Certainly.
Same for me, Steve. So with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the sale of a portion of New Street shown on Miami map number 2 GCR, map 23, Gila County Records, Gila County, Arizona, to Freeport McMoran, Miami Incorporated in the amount of $1,488.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay, Steve, on to aye. Information discussion action to approve the use of a Sourcewell Caterpillar Empire Southwest LLC contract agreement, Sourcewell number 032119-CAT, for the purchase of heavy equipment and related accessories, attachments, and supplies in a not to exceed amount of $400,000 for the term beginning August 17th, 2020 to August 16th, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is an ongoing contract. We come before you every year to renew it. Probably 99% of our equipment is Caterpillar equipment. This allows us to leverage this contract to purchase reduced prices on CAT equipment, lets us have them come in and work on our stuff. Perfect example is working on a project that will require a scraper. We went to CAT and asked for Empire and asked for rental rates. A weekly rental rate under this contract is $2,431. If we didn't have this in place, we'd be over $4,200 a week to rent the same equipment. Where it also helps us is on major repairs. We don't have to go out and get 3 bids, take the time to advertise, and chances are it's going to come back and it's going to be CAT Empire that does the work anyway, but it cuts the time down by a number of months to get our equipment repaired and back moving. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Steve. Tommy?
No questions for me, Mr. Chair.
Tim?
And that doesn't mean that we use that amount. That's just an amount that
It's an amount not to
if
exceed.
you need to exceed that, you come back to us. And so, just last year, do you have any idea how close we got to that $400,000?
I do. Actually, we went over $61,000. Empire went ahead and honored the contract. The reason we went over was we had a major purchase of around $300,000 on a scraper that we weren't expecting. So we don't expect. And the reason we didn't come back was it was at the end of the year. We just had stopped using it then. There was no reason to come back. We just waited until the next year started. But we feel $400,000 is more than adequate this year. We don't have any major purchases planned. This will just be on repairs. Although if something comes up that we do have to purchase, we get anywhere from 22 to 39% on major purchases of equipment.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
And so that's a reduction then, huh, Steve? The 22 to 39%?
Yeah, if we wanted to buy a new backhoe, what it would cost the person on the street, we get straight 22% off of that. And then if Empire is running specials or something, we get that also.
So I would say over the course of several years, we've saved a pretty good amount of money by going this route.
And time of getting the equipment repaired and back on the road. Yes.
Thanks, Steve. I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I do move that we approve the use of the Sourcewell Caterpillar Empire Southwest LLC contract agreement, Sourcewell number 032119-CAT, in a not to exceed amount of $400,000 for the term beginning August 17, 2020 to August 16, 2021.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Moving on to J, information discussion action to approve Economic Development Grant Agreement number 07302020 between Gila County and the town of Miami to provide funding in the amount of $73,000 for the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, that will be used to help fund the town's Copper Mountain Transit Program, formerly known as the Copper Valley Community Transit System. Mary Springer.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman and member supervisors. I'm bringing the agreement to you today. This is to continue the transit services and our participation in our economic development grant contribution. This is a contribution we've been making for several years, and there is a presentation attached to this item. In speaking with the Miami town manager, he is more than happy to come back at a later meeting and run through that presentation if you would like. But this is asking you to go ahead and approve this year's economic development grant in the amount of $73,000 for the continuation of those transit services.
Thank you, Mary. Tommy, do you have any questions?
I do not, Mr. Chair. I'm just glad we can help.
And Tim?
Just two quick questions. One, is City of Globe still donating to this as well? And second question, is this the same amount as it was last year?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, yes, the City of Globe is contributing. We make our contribution first, and I actually have an email set and ready for Jeannie Segroy once you make the approval, that letting them know that we've done our part. And it is the same amount as last year.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
Mary, I don't have anything, questions on it. It's a good deal, and I know it makes a big difference. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve Economic Development Grant number 070302020.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Mary. Moving on to K, information, discussion, action to authorize advertisement of request for proposals number 072120 lobbyist services. James.
Mr. Chairman, if I could go back to item J, we are working through CAG to do a public transportation study for the entire county. This is being funded by a grant, and so we are working to look at our transportation, make sure we're doing the right things, the best things for getting transportation moved around the county. So that is in the works. It's a long process for that transportation study, a year and a half or so, that Homer and Michael Driscoll have been working with CAG on. So item K, this has been on my mind for quite some time, particularly since the last legislative session that we had. The Tonto Creek Bridge was forefront in a lot of the discussions. There was a lot of testimony down at the state. And my one feeling that I had during all that time is that we needed to have somebody that was continuously pushing that effort in the senators and representatives. We had Senator Allen, Representative Cook, and others that were pushing it, but wanted to make sure, my feeling is we needed to have somebody that was continually pushing it down at the Senate and down at the House. On the state level, as you've seen, we've put a list, quite a big list of things together that we want to consider through CSA and other issues that we have. And so I don't know what this looks like. I don't know what it brings, but just ask Mary to put together an RFP that we can put it out on the street, see what the services we might be able to obtain, what it might cost, bring it back to you as a board and have that discussion. This just is requesting permission to put out the RFP.
Tommy, you have something to say about this?
Mr. Chair, I just think that any help we can get, if there is still momentum to be had, that we find it, if we possibly can. And that's just my 2 cents worth, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Tommy. Tim?
Yeah, I think it's a good deal. I think we need all the help we can get. I mean, we can make a million phone calls and stuff, but it helps to have others helping as well.
Thanks, Tim. I don't necessarily see it that way. So I would question, James, one of my questions would be is, are we utilizing CSA enough? They have people down there. We're a member of CSA. And so are we actually utilizing them to the point where there's nothing left in there we can use? Because my thoughts is they've got plenty of folks there that can help us on the issues when we have them arise. The other thing of it is I know what you're saying about being in the face of senators and representatives, but we have that ability as a board. That's where we're at as a board. We have the relationships and everything to pick those phones up and call them and give them our 2 cents worth. And I must say that they listen to us. They have listened to us. We had tremendous support for the Tunnel Creek Bridge. Between Sylvia Allen and Dave Cook, they pushed hard. That would have been funded if it hadn't been for our little virus problem. And so I'm just looking at dollars, James, and I'm looking at dollars versus what we're going to get out of those dollars. And be quite honest with you, I don't see it. If anybody else has anything they want to say about that, or James, or you do, I'd be more than happy to hear.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, CSA, as you know, we go into a legislative summit in the fall that all of the proposals that are made by each county are brought together to determine if it's something that CSA as a whole will support. As you know, we took a proposal regarding liquor licenses to CSA in the past, and that was rejected by the group. It was rejected by the group saying that, well, it was a zoning issue that it's not the liquor board, that we can have zoning that prohibits a liquor license from being used in certain areas. We have since learned, and we know that that is not true, that the statute says that the county shall not put any restrictions on the liquor license. And so that's there's just that conflict with CSA of the whole group has to approve it before CSA will support something. It is why I'm looking outside of CSA. I know Craig, I've talked to him, and he's willing to have any discussions, do what he can, kind of on the side. I've talked to him specifically about the liquor license, and that they are kind of limited to what they could do in that circumstance, but he would do whatever he could. So that's why I put this on the agenda, was another reason.
Okay. I think for me it's a matter of doing a lot of thinking about this, and I'm not so sure I'm going to side with it after I do a lot of thinking about it. But
absolutely.
So excuse me, James. So I look at things too. If we have a major issue, if we do have something that is really hounding us, that we need to push through and work on, besides us three. You know, there's nothing tied to our three tails to keep us from going to the Capitol whenever. But there's got to be some consultants or whatever out there, lobbyists even per se, that you could hire on a case-by-case basis. If that was something this was designed for, I might look at that a little harder. But I'm actually, when I think about lobbyists, and I think about our federal lobbyists that we have in D.C., and she is working for us and doing some things. But do we need one at the state level? I don't know. Jackie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a bit of additional discussion. Having spent quite a bit of time going to CSA's legislative summits, what I know happens is CSA supports things that benefit the group or helps oppose things that benefit the group. But things of specific interest to a specific county, for example, the year that it looked like they were going to change taxing on smelters, didn't even hit their radar screen because it isn't about the whole. I know that, so just as a clarification, they do the whole, and they don't do things which would create conflict, or they don't support a county if it happens to be in opposition to another county. I've seen some of those kind of water issues that they just stay out of. And counties generally are expected to pack their own water on, not as a water issue, but take their own issues of interest. So there is that. In the past, as historically we have a number of staff folks that are identified as can go lobby the legislature depending on items and issues and areas of interest. But when things are moving fast and furious through that legislature, there isn't a staff member, a department head that has the ability to take all the free time they need to go do that. So there are some counties, and it just might be something for you to further investigate. There are some small counties that do, in fact, have somebody that they either do case by case or retainer, or they all share, and to go be their advocate at the legislature. And I've met some of those folks, and none of those names are coming to the forefront. And for whatever reason, on this computer, I can't open either attachment, so I can't see what the request to advertise is. Mm-hmm. But what I would also tell you is that while this was being advertised, this is my understanding of this action is to go ahead and advertise for RFPs, but doesn't commit any, thank you, Dave, because I can't get him to open over here, doesn't commit anything. It's just the ability to go advertise and see if there's any interest at this time. And I believe it would come back to you.
So I understand what you're saying, but Jackie, how many times has that happened in the past, where we've had to have somebody at the state legislature pushing on this?
And that could be a discussion, not necessarily in a board meeting. There are things that we have missed because we didn't have our interest represented in specific. And I would go back to the one that James was talking about. Liquor laws change. So the liquor laws changed, and we weren't aware of it until we got caught in the crosshairs of, we thought our ordinance or our plan said one thing and the laws changed in the meantime. That nobody was really writing herd on that. And it's hard to identify negatives. It's hard to identify how many times we could have affected an outcome, but we didn't have anybody in the discussion to affect that outcome. So that's hard for me to characterize. How many? It's easier for me to characterize the number of things that we would want to be advocating for. And those are usually, well, once again, that's a little hard to characterize. We've never advocated for Tonto Bridge, except last year was the first time at the state legislature. Have we missed opportunities because we didn't know we should be in those conversations? Possibly. Going forward, when things are moving at lightning speed in the state legislature, and that's just for those 100 days or so, however, there are probably things that we're missing. 15 years ago, we generally had somebody on that Capitol property every day that the legislature was in session, at least 3 out of 5 days a week, and often 5 out of 5 days a week. We haven't had that for a number of years. So what have we missed in the meantime? I can think of some changes in the liquor license, for sure, that we weren't even aware of. Some potential changes in the law related to smelters that we weren't aware of until we stumbled across it.
So for me, for you, James, and Jackie, and everybody here and on YouTube, I don't have enough information.
Right.
I didn't know this was on there until I looked at it here recently on this agenda item. And so I have lots of questions about this. And it might come from the side of me that says, do we need to spend any extra dollars to get this, and what's it going to do for us? You know, we're spending a buttload of money right now on everything, and somewhere along the way, somewhere we got to kind of watch. Do we really need this? I mean, is it going to be something that's going to truly benefit us in the next year or so? Maybe. Maybe not. So that's where I am with it. Tim or Tommy, you guys want to say anything else?
Mr. Chair, I think it hurts nothing to do a request for proposal and see what we're in for. I will tell you that the examples that I can give us, I know that Greenlee County and Apache County and maybe Graham County go together and have a state lobbyist that watches out for them all the time, and that they have in the past just inadvertently said things to us that we were able to take advantage of that we didn't know about because we didn't have. Well, we can call these legislators at any time. None of us are sitting down there day after day after day to see what goes on. I worked for a while in the 70s for Sam McConnell, who at the time was Rules Chair and so forth. And he had a sign in his office that I've never forgotten. It says, "No man, woman, child, dog, or cat is safe in Arizona while this body is in session." For ECO, as for example, we have Navajo County uses a gentleman that ECO has also picked up and used to be our eyes and ears daily at the state level. Where it has paid off, in particular for ECO, is with the relationship we have with other state associations, state departments like the Game and Fish Department. It lets us daily see if there's any action going on at the state level that affects them and therefore affects us. We don't have much state land, but what we do have, we also keep an eye on, at least ECO does, through the eastern counties, through this group. It's not a whole lot of money, and we get a great deal of information and a great deal of help, both in help, as much as anything, in amending bills that come up if they're the least bit harmful to the counties, to the eastern counties at least. We're able to offer amendments that bring it back our way. I think it's well worth taking a look at and you talking to other counties who do this and see what they think, Mr. Chair. And in the meantime, I think it's well worth just finding out, getting more information even this way. What would it cost us? And what would we get? And that's my new 2 cents worth, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate that. Tim?
No, I'm good. I just think that we're not saying that we're going to do anything. We're just advertising for a request to see perhaps what it may cost us to have another voice in front of the state legislature. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that also. This scope of work that's on the board, I have not even read it. I don't even know what's in that scope of work. So I'm ready for a motion if somebody wants to make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I do move that we authorize the advertisement for requests for proposals, number 072120, lobbyist services.
Mr. Chair, I will second that motion.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Thanks. So moving on to Gila County Board of Supervisors. Well, hang on a minute. On to number L. Motion to recess as Gila County Board of Supervisors and convene as a Gila County Library District Board of Directors.
Mr. Chair, I move to recess as Gila County Board of Supervisors and convene as the Gila County Library District Board of Directors to address item 4L.
Second, 4I, isn't it? I don't know.
It's 4L.
L.
Yeah. So hearing a motion
I
and a...
second that, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion...
I second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, having a motion and a second. All in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, we're now Board of Library District Board of Directors. Jackie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Annually, I come to the board and ask for approval of the library service agreements. Generally speaking, in the past, it has been for 8 libraries, but as you know, in Hayden, we are in the process of a short, I think it was like a 1 to 2 year agreement where we as a county would be operating the library on their behalf with the funds that we would have given them. So it's operating more like a branch. And the San Carlos affiliate library doesn't have their paperwork in yet. So I'm asking for approval for 6 library service agreements for Globe, Isabel Hunt, Miami, Payson, Tono Basin, and Young Public Libraries for the provision of library services. And are there questions?
Thank you, Jackie. Tommy, do you have questions?
No, Mr. Chair, I do not.
And Tim?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm good.
Jackie, neither do I. So with that, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve library service agreement for Globe, Isabel Hunt and Pine, Miami, Payson, Tono Basin, and Young Public Libraries as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn as the Gila County Library District Board of Directors and convene as the Gila County Board of Supervisors.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay, on to consent agenda action items number 5. Do either one of you have something there to address or remove? It is A through N.
I do not, Mr. Chair.
I just have a comment. I don't want to pull anything. It's just 5, F, G, H, and I are 9 more properties that have found homes. And so I think that's a great deal when you're trying to clean up blight and you get somebody responsible for 9 properties, how sweet it is. That's all I had.
That is a good deal. The more we can put back on tax rolls, the better. So the only thing I wanted to point out is on N, and I don't want to pull it or anything. I just want to comment on it, but I will read it so the folks on YouTube and everybody else can hear. It's the approval to terminate contract number DI16-002156 with the Arizona Department of Economic Services, ADES, effective November 15th, 2020, whereby the County Attorney's Office will no longer provide child support services for Gila County. And just so everybody knows, that's our County Attorney's decision. He's the one working on that. And any questions anybody has on YouTube or anywhere else, why, please get a hold of our county attorney if you want to talk to him about it. So that's all I had. So do I have a motion to accept all these?
Mr. Chair, I move that we do adopt consent agenda action items 5A through N as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Number 6, call to the public. James, Cheryl, do we have anybody up there for call to the public?
No, sir, we do not.
And do we on YouTube? And we do not hear either. So moving on to the number 7, updates. James, do you have an update for us?
No, I'm good for today. Thanks.
Okay, Tommy?
Mr. Chair, I'm good right now, thanks.
Okay, and Tim?
No, I just spoke on Kiko Radio the other day. It was a good little time. I enjoyed it. Had some good comments. And I held a Roosevelt community meeting call-in, and I also held a Tonto Basin community call-in. I'm still trying to stay in touch with the public best I can. And so that's all I have.
Thanks, Tim. I just have 2 of them. Last Thursday on the 13th, I met with mayors from Winkleman, Hayden, and Kearney, along with Supervisor Pete Reels, and 2 town managers, Todd Pryor and one from Kearney. Can't remember his name either. Jeff McCormick, thank you. Anyway, it's about the ambulance service out of Kearney. Kearney has been paying for this ambulance service. It services a lot of country down there in that corridor, but they're running out of money. So we had a pretty good discussion on maybe all of us being able to pitch in and get them out of that hole, and just what services will they provide and all that. So this is going to be an ongoing conversation with us. If in fact they were to go under and the ambulance service was to pull out of there, I don't know who's going to replace them, and that's going to impact a lot of people. So that's going on, and that'll be a continual discussion. And then on Friday, August 28th, coming up at 10 o'clock, I'm sponsoring a demonstration of that sprinkler system in Payson. And it has piqued Congressman Gosar's interest in this. He's got a real interest in it, along with some other people. So we're going to try and pull it all together and demonstrate what that system will do in the event of fire suppression, like around a home, things of that nature. So I'm really kind of looking forward to that and looking to get a video to where we can put it on a thumb drive or whatever and share it. So that's all I had. Other than that, it's been a long day. So
Don't get longer.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, I move to go into executive session pursuant to ARS 38431.03 A, 3, and 4 to discuss settlement negotiations in multi-district opioid litigation.
Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Having a motion and a second, we'll give it another shot. We'll be back. hold on for 1 minute. Okay, I'll bring this meeting back in order and call for motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I move to direct the Deputy County Attorney to proceed as directed in the executive session.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. So with that, thank you everyone. This was a marathon, so we'll adjourn. Yeah, and on a Monday to boot. So I'll adjourn this meeting right now. Thank you.